Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Today I want to talk about why one practice triples, quadruples, quintuples, and just keeps going on. Why does one practice grow and continue to grow and be successful while another practice struggles? And if you actually think about the industry, we have an epidemic. If you look at the dental industry as a whole, there's an epidemic, and the epidemic is the average growth rate in a dental practice is 2.5%. And we need to think about that for a second. Now, here's the interesting part if we actually start thinking about it. The interesting part is inflation is what? Like 3%. So if you think about it, if you continue to grow at 2.5% every single year, and inflation's 3%, and that's why you'll end up at a place where all of a sudden you look at your dental practice and wonder why things are declining, right? And it's a slow leak. It happens over a period of years and a period of time. And we talk about a lot of that, but really what made me think of this concept was recently I was looking at two different individuals, and one of them had come to a workshop we'd put on years ago and tripled in revenue, while at the same period of time, somebody else was at a workshop. Now, this was an introductory workshop. One person's there, and they triple in revenue, and somebody else decides not to take action. And I asked this person, because I had bumped into him recently, and I said, hey, you decided not to take action. So tell me how things are going. Tell me how things are going. And the doctor said, well, not that great. I said, well, what do you mean not that great? And he said, well, we're most of our patients are leaving still, and I bought the practice from an older doctor. So this is by the way, a younger doctor bought the practice from an older doctor. And he's like, we're not really getting any new blood in. No new patients are coming in. We average 4 new patients a month. And I said, well, then you're probably, based on where your age of your patient base is, you're probably losing 10 a month. And so we started talking about this idea, and it really, to be honest with you, grabbed me, because I was like, it's so interesting to look at that as a case study, right? In business, we look at case studies. So we look at that from a case study standpoint and go, why does one practice triple in revenue while another practice struggles, right? And if we're going to overcome this epidemic, this 2.5% number, and how we're going to get over that, we have to actually start thinking about this. So in this podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the 3 reasons why people end up staying stuck and why they don't move forward, and the reason why their practice never takes off and they ended up selling it in decline because they really have no other option. Now, most people don't want to face the truth. And I want you to understand this as you're listening to this. And by the way, you can be honest on this podcast. See, you're not in front of me, so you can kind of listen to this. And it's true. Most doctors are undercapitalized. Most doctors are overwhelmed with debt. Most doctors do not have the capital that they should have put aside. Most doctors don't have the savings that they need to have. The question is, do you? If I asked you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about your current debt position, what would you say? 1 being, I feel like I'm drowning, and 10, I feel amazing. How about capital? How about capital that you've saved? How about savings and retirement planning? If your financial advisor is so great, let me ask you a question. Think about this for a second. Even if you accumulated $2 million, that's only about $8,000 a month in income. And what are you spending today? So if you're spending more than that today, what's it going to look like 30 years from now? And so you start thinking about this and saying, holy moly, Eric, you're right. If I actually start looking at it, I'm not really where I want to be yet either, but there's good news. And the good news is that it's easy to fix. It's easy to fix. It's easy to change this paradigm. It's easy to change the way we're doing things. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I'm inspired to do this podcast is because I believe that there's a way to change this, and you should be committed to changing it. That's got to change, right? And I know what you're thinking. Oh, I'm good, Eric. Actually, it's not true. I'm just going to tell you. I've had people sit down in front of me with $15 million and no debt and still not be good. In simplistic term, before I get to the 3 factors, I always kind of say I classify people in kind of 4 different areas. And the 4 areas are, and I want you to take a second as you're listening to this, and I want you to classify yourself in these areas. Area number 1, right? And by the way, patients fall into this. Patients fall into this, and so do, right, team members, right? They fall into this too. And so do my clients, and so do, right? And so think about this for a second. So 1 is the person that says, poor me. So they're in category 1, poor me. Everything's, everything is falling down. The sky's always falling. And it's the divorce that happened 15 years ago, or the real estate went bad, or, you ever meet this people who like always have a problem, right? So there's always something going on with them. And they're the patient that sits in your chair and tells you their entire life sob story. And by the way, I'm not, diminishing people who have difficult times, and I'm certainly not trying to make light of that. But I do need you to know that you get to take a few months to deal with those things, but then you got to move on, right? We don't want to hang out in that area. But there's just some people that just hang out in that area. You know who they are, and you know if it's you. Number 2, these are the people I say, help me, right? They're not the poor me's, they're help me. They're like, Eric, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get to the next step. I don't know what to do, but I'll do it. Heck, I'll do it. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'll come in early. I'll stay late. I'll fight the good fight. I'll do whatever it takes to get out of this hole. And it might not take 12 months. One of the comical things about the consulting industry is everybody wants to sell you some flash in the pan idea. Just like diet and exercise, building a great business is hard work and takes time. One of the reasons why doctors have failed to create successful businesses is because they don't realize that it's a business. It's a completely separate discipline. It's a different discipline, right, than practicing dentistry, and you've got to take it seriously. The third category I'd say is these are the people that say, I'm good. And I say these are called leave me's, right? So we have poor me's, help me's, and these are leave me's. These are the people that they know they're undercapitalized. They know they're drowning in debt. They know that they've got, right? They're nowhere close to retirement. They're nowhere close to where they want financially. But these are the people that say, I'm good. And if you start thinking about this for a second, you have patients like this. They'll come in, and when you start spending time with them, you could literally give them the service. They walk in, you say, look, your tooth is cracked. Literally, you could say, I can fix this today, and the insurance pays 100% of this, and I could do it in 5 minutes, and they would still say, what? I'm good. I'm good. Leave me. Right? It's hard to fix those people. And then there's category 4, and I call these people the transformational. They're the transformies. They're the I want to move, I want to change, I want to become, I want to grow, I want to accelerate. And matter of fact, this person will never be there. They can't stop getting better. They can't stop growing. They can't stop building, reading, coming to the seminars, attending, investing, right? And by the way, most millionaires and billionaires are in that 4 spot. Now, the interesting part is you can move or you can fall back. But I want you to understand, we start thinking about this for a second, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dentists, and I will tell you that these categories are so true. So then you got to ask yourself, well, if that's the case, Eric, if that's the case that there's these people that say, leave me, and by the way, who do you want to work with? Probably the number 2s and number 4s, right? If you think about that. If you go back to this and think for a second, well, why would somebody not want to grow? Why would someone not want to get better? It's kind of like this whole, right? So they walk up to me. I just had a guy, the Hinman Dental Convention was here in Atlanta recently, and I had a guy who basically walked up and told me all his problems, and I basically said, here's exactly how to fix it. But he won't do it, right? He won't do it. Right? And the reason is, number 1, this is the number 1 reason why practices don't get where they want to be. They don't triple, they don't quadruple, is because, write this down, they're afraid to face the truth. They're afraid to face the truth. And just like a patient, you know, patients don't go see the dentist because they're afraid that you're going to look at their teeth, that you're afraid that, right? There's people that are afraid to make a change. They don't want someone to actually tell them the truth. See, it's easier to pretend. Let's just face it, it's easier to pretend. It's easier to go to the Hinman convention and talk to all your friends and tell them how successful you are and how great you're doing and how well your business is doing. It's kind of interesting. The Hinman Dental Convention to me is, or any dental convention, ADA, it's kind of like salespeople. If you ever get salespeople in a room, it's always the best year they've ever had. Like, ask them, like, so how's your year going? Oh, best year ever. Oh my gosh, it's the best year ever. And dentists kind of do the same thing. It's like this idea that, hey, it's great. I'm fantastic. And meanwhile, they're going home and their wife or husband's upset because they're still in debt and they can't get out of the hole and they don't have enough saved for retirement and they're not where they want to be and their practice stresses them out and they're unhappy, but they don't want to tell anyone. They put on a fake front. And they're afraid to face the truth. They don't want people like me looking at their numbers and looking at their process and telling them the truth. And guys, I hate to say that. I mean, I say that and people are like, oh, that's kind of offensive, Eric. Is it really? Or is it what you need to hear? See, I don't find it offensive at all. Here's what's offensive. Offensive is knowing that you can help somebody move to the next level and not helping them. See, that's offensive. Offensive is sitting back and watching people struggle and not jumping in and helping them. It's watching somebody drown and not put out a hand. I'm telling you, the number one reason, and I see it over and over again, they're so afraid that someone's going to look in their mouth and tell them the truth. And the truth is they're messed up. And they've messed up. But that's okay. You didn't go to school to be a business owner. It's okay to have someone tell you messed up. And so I think the very first thing is we just got to face the truth and say, look, here's my stuff. This is my investment accounts and Eric, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how to read a set of financials. I have no clue how to read a set of financials. And matter of fact, I get them once a quarter and I just shove them in a pile. Do you get your financials and just shove them in a pile? Do you know what they mean? Do you know how to manage by them, right? As I'm recording this, I think I can hear like a bird, right? Springs in the air. And it's time. If you haven't done enough in the first quarter, it's time to like make a change and say, look, I don't know how to read financials. I don't know my numbers. I don't think I'm ready for retirement. And even if you say to yourself and you've listened to this, and maybe number one doesn't pertain to you. Maybe one is the situation where you say, Eric, I'm actually... See, I start thinking about number one and I start thinking about going, I'm not afraid. But I don't know what's next. But I'm going to tell you that the first thing we got to identify is you better know the truth. You got to know everything, where you sit financially, what your numbers is, your cash flow forecast. You got to know your hygiene percentage of production. You have to know how your profitability is. You got to know all these business numbers. But here's the great news. You don't have to do it yourself. If you put systems in place, I will promise you don't need to do all this yourself. Like can be done for you. But the first thing you got to do is open up, right? Just like a dentist, just like your patients can get fixed and taken care of if they will just open their mouth. Don't be afraid to open your mouth. Don't be afraid to let someone take a look. I know what you guys do at the Hinman Dental Convention anyhow. I know what you do at other conventions. I know you're telling your friends and everyone you know how successful you are. I know you're hanging out at the country club telling everybody how great you are. But the truth is we've got to be open and honest with somebody. And the financial advisor is not prepared to take a look at your business. They're not. And this is one of the things that like baffles my mind. I still go back, and this is probably the biggest frustration for someone like me is I don't understand why, if you know it's messed up and you know you're not there, why would you not do something to fix it, right? We're going to talk about that in number 3. But that one always baffles me is that the idea that you know it's wrong. It's like going and someone who's drinks every day or smokes every day or whatever, and they lead to this path of destruction, yet they're not willing to do anything. Be open and honest. People love and care for you and want to help and are passionate, and they're just not trying to always take your money. Number 2, the second reason why practices struggle, why practices triple and the other one struggles. Another reason why that is because to be completely honest, they lack a certain few things. Maybe it's motivation, right? There's a few of these: motivation, inspiration, leadership, the right team. That's all number 2, because here's what I will tell you. Motivation is actually kind of important, because you actually go back to it. And I've seen so many dentists who have come to me and they're just not motivated to grow their business. They're not motivated to become more successful. They don't know how to inspire their team. They don't have a vision. They don't know where they're going. And I will tell you, as a leader, you've got to know where you're going. You have to be inspiring, motivating, moving, and you've got to have your leadership down. Get your leadership down. Get your leadership down. If you don't know how to become a great leader, right, there's a lot of resources to do it. Go become a great leader. I'm telling you, there's so many resources, because you need to learn how your vision and where you're going and how to inspire. And if you don't have motivation, then you need to spend some time with a group like mine. You need to spend some time with me, and let me show you why you should be motivated. I had a doctor about a year ago. It was kind of funny. He had called back up. He had signed up for full services with Tower Leadership. And like a week later, he calls up and he says, "You know what? I signed up for all this, but I'm not really sure that I need all this. I'm not really sure I made a good decision, because I'm sitting on my back porch and I'm looking at the lake, and life's good. My life's good, and I feel great. And so I'm not sure I need all this." And he came in, and when he came in, we sat down and we talked about the purpose of his life's work. We talked about what he's going to do next, and we talked about how to impact his kids and how to leave a legacy, and so much that literally he was moved, and I am moved by him. And I'm telling you, if you lack motivation, inspiration, leadership, you need to get involved. You need to get that right. You need to learn those areas, because if you have no reason to be motivated, then let me go give you a reason to be motivated, because there's so much to be motivated for. This idea that I'm good, you need to get inspired then. And then you need to have the right team. But because here's the interesting part. If you have motivation, you will show up, right? Dressed for success, looking good, ready to go. You're inspired. You know where you're going. You have vision. You know how to lead your team. You're the right leader for them. And then those things attract the right team. That's right. Becoming a great leader attracts the right team. If you can't find the right team, then you start looking at yourself. Hygienists hang out with hygienists. Assistants hang out with assistants. Doctors hang out with doctors. And I'm telling you, if you're looking around and you can't find the right team, it might be you. Okay? I've had someone recently tell me, "Hey, there's no good people in Atlanta." Really? In Atlanta? Right? I mean, it's interesting. So I want you to understand this. I gotta have a vision. I gotta know where I'm going. I want to be inspired and motivated. And then I want to get my team, because I'm going to attract, by the way, pay your team. Get the right team. Get them in place, and then pay them well. There's all kinds of people out there trying to tell you to pay your team as least as possible. Fire those advisors from your life. You want the best people. You want the most successful people. You want the most inspired people. Those are the people that you want on your team. And it reminds me of a story that I tell sometimes. And the story is this. So when I heard the story, by the way, it was just moving to me. And it kind of paints the story of what I really want you to understand. And as a prior Navy guy, I really appreciate it as well. And there was a captain named Charles Plum. And Charles Plum would fly, right, fighters off the deck of an aircraft carrier back in Vietnam. And Charles Plum was a very, very successful pilot. And he flew 74 successful missions. He flew 74 successful missions. And on the 75th mission, he was shot down. And when he was shot down, he landed safely, but that safety did not last for long. And he was captured and held in captivity for a number of years. And eventually Captain Plum was rescued, and many years later he was out to dinner with his wife. And as he's out to dinner, a young man comes up to him and says, he's excited. He says, "Hey, you're Captain Plum. You're Charles Captain Plum." And he said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "You used to fly F-4s off the deck of an aircraft carrier." He's like, "Yeah, I did." And then he said, "You were shot down and you were captured in this." So then Captain Plum starts thinking, "Okay, this guy knows a little bit too much about me." He says, "I got to tell you who I am. I was a seaman. I was a sailor on that carrier. And I had one job. And that was to pack your parachute. And that was my only job. Because heaven forbid, the worst case scenario happened. I wanted to make sure you were safe." And that hit Captain Plum. And he started thinking about that night, and he started really thinking through this. And he goes, "Gosh, I was on this carrier. I went by this guy every day, and I never knew who he was. And yet this guy is responsible for me being here today. Who's packing your parachute? Who takes care of you? What family hasn't gotten you here? What team members come in early and stay late, and they sacrifice to pack your parachute?" And I tell you that to tell you this. Take care of your team. The companies out there calling your team human capital and exploiting them and acting like they don't matter are absurd. You need to find your vision. You need to get motivated. You need to inspire, and you need to build one hell of a team. And don't say, "Well, I have a bunch of people that are nice." One of the best leadership things I've heard in a long time, I heard last year, and someone said, "You can have a team that gets along and is nice, but that does not mean they're a successful team." Successful teams know the numbers. Successful teams get results. Successful teams make the difference. Because if you're sitting here listening to this and saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't know if I'm motivated, or I don't know what my vision for my practice in my personal life is, in my financial legacy and what I'm trying to build," then you need to get in, right? You need to get that. You need to get motivated, inspired, and build a team and get leadership and all this stuff, because those people are fighting for you, and they'll fight for you if you build it right. And it's not overnight. It takes a period of time. But I will promise you that if you build the right team, they will fight for you. You want to become wealthy? Go take care of your team. You want to become wealthy? Inspire people. You want to become wealthy? Motivate people. You want to become wealthy? Become a leader. I'm telling you, it matters. Number 3 reason. The third reason people don't get there is because they're scared someone's going to take a piece of their pie. That's right. They're scared someone's going to take a piece of their pie. They have what we call a scarcity mindset. This idea that, hey, if I was to give Eric $1,000, or if I was to give Jim $1,000 or whatever, I would be $1,000 less. I have $1,000 less. Instead of saying, how much more could Eric make me if I gave him $1,000? See, the idea of investing and growing abundantly. Matter of fact, some of you are scared that the neighbor down the street is going to take your patients. And you, like, I talked to a doctor recently, was so worried about what's happening down the street that he is not concerned with what's happening in his practice. Let me tell you this. There's plenty of patients out there. Plenty of patients out there. There are plenty of people to take care of. You don't need to worry about corporations. You don't need to worry about everybody else. Focus on you, but you have to make an investment. And we go back to motivation and inspiration and leadership and team, right? Don't have a scarcity mindset. You have to believe in abundance. There's an abundance around you. You could make money without even trying. But you got to get the resource to be attracted to you, which means you need to invest. Don't be so scared that someone might take your money. By the way, are there people in this world that will take your money and there's no return? Absolutely. One of the wealthiest people, and I've talked about him before on this podcast, I've ever met and got to spend time with, I remember doing his taxes. I would help him with his taxes because he had a vision problem. And I remember watching certain stocks where he lost a lot of money. But the 5 he made tons of money on would outweigh that one that he didn't. You got to invest. I'm telling you right now, the average person I work with has had a consultant before, or has had a financial advisor, or has somebody investing them, directing them. Look, don't be scared someone's going to take a piece of your pie. There's plenty of pie, and if you don't have enough pie, go make some more. There's not a lack of abundance in the world. Resources are not scarce, even though everyone's trying to tell you they are. The opportunities for you to create abundance are limitless, but you have to be willing to take a chance. Money is an energy. You must direct it and you must let it flow. It's the only way money comes back. Think about that. The only way for you to allow money to come back to you, and the only way is for you to let it go. You have to be willing to make an investment. It's the only way to get a return. So I want you to think about this for a second. Are you afraid to face the truth? Are you afraid that someone's going to look at this stuff and maybe tell you you've made a mistake in the past? Or maybe you're not on track and you're scared that you're going to have to look at your spouse and say, hey, I'm not on track. That's okay. But you've got to be able to look at yourself. It's like being in a physical fitness plan. You've got to be willing to get in front of the mirror and take a look. You've got to be willing to take your shirt off, right? In a sense, right? In a metaphorical sense. You've got to be willing to look at the flaws and the areas where we need to improve, and you've got to be able to listen to advice. Don't worry so much that somebody might sell you something. The opportunities you're missing are costing you your fortune, your legacy, and your impact. So don't be afraid to face the truth. Don't be afraid to face the truth. If you lack motivation, number 2, if you lack motivation and inspiration and leadership, you need to get those things in your life. Become inspired and motivated and become a better leader. There's so many resources to make you become a better leader, but you have to go find them. They will not drop down in your bed in the middle of the night. Leadership, great ideas, motivation, and inspiration rarely come find you in the middle of the night. You have to go searching. You have to go searching, you have to go looking, you have to go finding the answers. And don't be so damn scared someone's going to take a piece of your pie. I'm telling you, the pie is limitless. All you have to do is go get it. Money is an energy and you must direct it. I'm telling you, follow those 3 steps. As someone who's helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of business owners and dentists become successful, I'm telling you, you must do those. Or believe that you're good. The alternative is believe you're good. The alternative is to stay where you're at and wake up 20 years from now and be in the same spot you're at today, but hoping something will change. And if you're listening to this going, hey, that's not me, Eric, I'm already successful, I've got all my stuff together, let's be honest. There's not an elite athlete in the world that does not have a coach. Even the best go get coaches. Tiger Woods always had a coach. The best of the best get advice and they grow. Look, one of the easiest ways to do is just subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, hit subscribe. This is an easy, free way to get motivated, inspired, right? Hear leadership, hear principles. So hit the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds. How many of you listening to this right now will not even hit subscribe, couldn't even be bothered to hit subscribe, and then wonder why your life doesn't change? Hit the subscribe button, right? It's the first thing I would do is just hit subscribe. If you heard a good idea during this podcast, I've only spent, so far I'm looking at the timer, about 29 minutes with you. Get motivated, right? Get the ideas. Hit subscribe. Come to a workshop. We do workshops all over the United States. We do workshops all over the place. And most of them cost next to nothing. I showed someone recently at a workshop, literally someone paid, I think, $2,000 to be there. And within 20 minutes, I showed them how to make $250,000. That's so silly that people wouldn't take that advice. Look, get involved with a workshop. What do you got to lose? Heck, I'll tell you right now on this podcast, come to a workshop. If you think it wasn't worth your time, I'll give you a check back for whatever you paid. Look, that's the idea, is that I want you to get involved. Listen, become a great leader, become motivated, impact your family, impact legacy. Look, take action today, right? Get connected to the next step. Come to our next foundation workshop. Be there. Be part of something. Be motivated. Move. We've had people leave our foundation workshop and increase revenue by $8,000 a day within no time. I'm not trying to sell you the workshop. This podcast is free. I'm just doing it because I'm passionate about what I do, and I want you to be able to take a next step. Whatever that step is, you've got to get these things down. Look, here's what I want. If you can't tell by my podcast and my voice, look, I want to make a difference, but more importantly, I want you to be making the difference. I want you to be the hero. Make a difference. This is your life. You get one of them. You've got such an opportunity in front of you in this practice. You have such an amazing opportunity. Do not miss it. All I am is your guide, but you're the hero. Go make a difference. Make a difference in your family and your kids and your great-grandkids and the team and the community, and make a difference on how their life turns out. Go change lives. Don't just get a retirement. Don't be that person. Don't be weak. Don't just get a retirement. Become more. Create more. Build more. Change lives. Create wealth. And with it, create all the impact you could ever dream of. I hope you guys have a great week.